Okay, so the following setup is when black plays knight c6, knight f3, and then d6. Yes, this is another natural continuation, and white is also coming with bishop c4. And let's see what are black's possibilities here. How about, for example, bishop g4? This is a typical losing move, very typical tactical way. Bishop takes f7, knight g5 check, and queen takes g4. So it's very, very typical trap. This he can't play. How about if he would play also would like to play this accelerated dragon idea or dragon idea with g6, bishop g7 to develop the bishop for to fianchetto? But then we can play queen b3. So usually if he plays so many pawn moves, we will punish him somehow or try to play something like that with which he will have a really hard and dangerous situation. e6 and castle. Bishop d7. Very strange moves. But for example, why not bishop b7? Bishop g7, I mean. Because rook d1 and the d6 will be weak. So if we continue the development with kind of knight here, then knight b5 and he's in a big trouble immediately. So bishop d7. Very strange move. g6 and bishop d7 together is not logical. Of course I understand the logic. The point is that he wants to play knight a5 because the immediate knight a5 could have been met by bishop b5 check, bishop d7 and queen a4, and white is good here. But after bishop d7 he is threatening with knight a5 already, so that's why the bishop goes back to e2. Knight f6 and rook d1, and also we have a good initiative here because not clear how we will develop with the f8 bishop. If he comes here, then the d6 is hanging, or if he goes to e7, then after g6 there are a big hole on g7, so maybe bishop h6 prevent the castle, and he weakened dark squares completely. So yeah, this g6 was also not really successful, but let's see a natural developing move with knight f6. But knight f6 is a well-known dubious continuation here, because now the point is e5 exclamation mark, so this is how I want to punish him. But let's see what is the point. Of course, if he would take with the knight, then it's kind of obvious, because takes, and we come with the typical bishop takes f7, which winning the queen. Yes, white wins the queen and win the game. So knight takes e5 is not working. How about if he takes with the pawn, because now the knight is protecting the queen, so there is no bishop takes f7 at all. But here we also go to the end game. It's yeah, kind of little surprise, and if he take with the king, then knight g5, so we don't hurry to take with the bishop the f7. With the knight we would like to go there and give him a fork. So after this knight g5 he is in kind of trouble. For example, knight a5 and bishop b5. Still we also, even here also can't be greedy, because knight takes f7, king e8, and my bishop doesn't have a good free square on this diagonal, and and I have to play knight takes h8 and then knight takes c4, and the same story which we discussed already before. We have an exchange up, but we lost the initiative, and we will even lose the knight also after this. So probably it's not a really good business for us. So bishop b5. Bishop b5 is a very accurate move. It's really nice. Bishop e6. Yeah, because he couldn't protect the f7 with another way. Knight takes e6. F takes e6. Bishop e3. Normally continue development. Prepares for long castle. And white is better. Black is also 2 pawns up, but his position is much worse. Very interesting. Look, these triple pawns. Not a big strength. Okay, so this is the situation. What happening if he takes with the king to d8? How about if he takes with the knight, because he seems to be safe? Knight b5. So we don't rush to take back the e5 pawn. First of all, we play knight b5 and tries to create several threats. Like for example, knight c7. How can he avoid that? Rook b8 is the only. Why? Because if he would play king d7, that's checkmate. It's brilliant. Takes. Not the moves are brilliant, just the own position. How smart is the knight giving checkmate for the black king. Or in case of rook b8, yeah, knight e6 is also not working to cover this square because bishop takes e6. So rook b8, knight takes e5 now, threatening with knight c7 checkmate. So he has to play e6. Knight e6 also a problem because bishop takes e6, bishop takes, knight c7 check, king d8, knight takes e6 and knight f7, and winning in the end. So pawn e6 is the only normal way. And okay, now we have to be careful a little bit, because the idea is that if we play kind of attacking move like bishop f4, he wants to come with the bishop b4 check. So first of all, we give a knight c7 check to force his king to e7. However, our knight is also a bit stuck there, almost trapped. But now we have bishop e3, and white's position is much more promising here. But let's see why. What can black do here? Yeah, our main threat is bishop c5 checkmate. Yeah, this is checkmate immediately, but threatening with bishop takes a7 also. So for example, if he would play a b6 move, then we have long castle, because on the d file the rook is pretty useful. And if he comes with rook b7, then knight b5 just come back here. And yeah, what can he do here? For example, yeah, a6, knight d6, that is threatening. Yeah, very, very hard. Maybe knight d5, jump into the center, and bishop g5 check, f6 also, we give an own fork for us. And what a brilliant play, rook he1, f takes g5, and bishop takes d5. And suddenly we are also very good here, because e takes d5, knight g6 check, and in the end we win back everything. Yes, how about if he would play king d6 here? Because actually it's a double attack. So it's a very weird move to come out with the king, but what do we do with the knights? The point is that now we play bishop f4, and we have very strong threats, so king c7, knight takes f7, and he has to resign. He's in a big trouble now. So yeah, what can he do? Knight, for example, h5 to attack the knight, attack the bishop. And yeah, knight b5 check now. King e7. Only move because on c5 he gets checkmate. Yeah, it's kind of checkmate check. King goes to b4, a3, king a5, b4. If king a4, then knight c3 and mate. And if bishop b4, then a takes b4, king takes, and we can feel that it will be checkmate really soon, maybe kind of decent. Rook h b1 checkmate. So king c5 is not working. King e7, he has to go. But now knight g6 check, and I will win the b8 rook. So this one, and white is maybe winning. Exchange up. There is only one pawn for this. Not enough compensation for it. Okay, let's go back a little bit. This was the e5, d takes e5. How about if he jumps to knight g4? E takes d6 is the main to continue the same strategy like in the previous examples, because create an isolated weakness pawn on d6 for him. However, e6, the very tempting move, very offensive move, was also tried in several times. Let's see how is it going on. F takes e6. If bishop takes, the idea is exchange, and then with knight g5 create a double attack, because the knight is also hanging and the e6 also. So for example, if knight f6, then knight takes e6, queen d7, queen e2, knight d8. Yeah, because the e6 knight is very unpleasant, so he should exchange as quick as possible. If he tries to chase away with king f7, it's not really successful because we give a check. The king is going back, and okay, at least I can repeat, but maybe I don't want, so just castle, and very good compensation here. So knight d8 is the logical. Knight takes d8, rook takes d8, and after bishop e3 we can also say that white has a great pressure, initiative for the pawn. But let's see still a few moves. For example, if he plays a6, castle, and how he develops. For example, e5, f4, immediately try to attack him. If he would play e6, it's okay, a bit more solid, but I also will attack somehow, maybe rook a d1, bishop e7, rook f e1, castle, bishop b6, and then the rook goes somewhere and I take on e6, and white is good. Even win back the material and the weakness on d6. Yeah, and if e5, then f4. So his development is not easy at all. For example, if g6, bishop g5, bishop g7, and rook f e1, just prevent the castle, because then I take on e7. But if he doesn't castle, what can he do? h6, bishop takes f6, bishop takes, and knight d5. Suddenly the knight also arrived in the center. It's very rare when we take the knight, but this was the point. The knight d5 came by a nice tempo. Maybe he plays castle, and we can also win back something material, or just continue the pressure with queen e4. With knight takes e7 we could win back the pawn. But maybe we have more. Queen e4, maybe... Yeah, if king g7, then probably I already... Oh, what a nice motif. Come here, and this is also a very, very dangerous threat. Okay. Yeah, so this is not simply not really good for him. Let's see how about the f takes. Also knight g5, so there is the same idea. Knight ge5 and bishop b3. Knight takes e6 seems to be very good, but not the most accurate, because queen a5, the c4 bishop is hanging, bishop b3, bishop takes e6, bishop takes e6, and after queen a6 suddenly it's not really easy, because he will arrive with knight d3 check. Yes, this check is extremely unpleasant. We will come with that, and yeah, what can he do? Or what can I do? So knight e6 may be a bit early. Let's play the more solid bishop b3 instead, and d5. Bishop f4. Continue the development. Okay, his central pawns are not bad now. Okay, not the ideal, because this pawn should be on f7. But okay, let's say it's good. But he's undeveloped again. Very, very undeveloped. I am much more faster. Knight f7. Okay, h6 is working. Chase away our knight. Not really, because bishop e5, knight e5, bishop a4 check, bishop d7, and knight takes e6. And winning, because he's impinned. How about g6? Just prepare for bishop g7 and castle for a normal position. Then we can also play bishop e5, knight e5, bishop a4 check. Okay, bishop d7, that we already know. But how about if he goes knight c6? Now queen f3. So black is so undeveloped, it's extremely hard to keep it for him. Extremely hard. Maybe, yeah, bishop h6, or what else? And knight f7. Yeah, triple attack. Okay, so g6 is also not working. That's why knight f7. Knight takes f7, king takes f7, and castle. Yeah, just normal development. g6. And knight b5. Very, very good compensation again, because we are threatening to jump to c7 already, a little bit, and also, what about with his king? What about it with his development? So for example, if bishop g7, knight c7, rook b8, knight takes d5. Also the crushing move. E takes d5. Bishop takes d5. Bishop is, if pawn e6, bishop takes c6, and then the rook is also hanging. So in the end it's even worse, materially also, for him. What else? If bishop e6, that is even worse, I can take it. His king is really out. Queen b3 check. We are queen d5. Check. Bishop e5. but his king is in the middle, simply takes, knight takes, rook takes, king takes, check, check or f4 we also, let's say f4, because after both he has to go to here, but after rook d1 now I open my back rank already. So this is also better chances for white, because okay, 2 rooks for the queen, but the queen is very active and we will win some pawns with it. Good, alright. e6, bishop takes c6 was hopeless. Nice, okay, let's go back. And let's see the e takes d6. So e6 was an interesting possibility, interesting alternative. Let's see e takes d6, e takes d6, and then castle. Bishop e7. And h3. Yes, because we would like to chase away his knight. Knight f6, but how about if he would jump to ge5? Very logical way. Knight takes e5, d takes e5. Finally, he is a bit happy to improve his pawn structure, but what about if he would take with the knight to create a threat to take the bishop? But then bishop b5 check, and if bishop d7, bishop takes d7, queen takes d7, knight d5. Short castle. Because same story. Beautiful knight on d5 gives enough compensation for the material. Rook e1, for example. Bishop f6 is very, very ugly. If he goes to bishop d8, it's losing, yes, because rook e5 and knight f6. So what about if he protects somehow with the rook f d8? But it's also bad because knight e7, queen e7, and f4. And he has problems on the, so we win a piece simply with this. So it was not working at all. How about bishop f6? So finally still this ugly move he has. But okay, at least I take it. G takes, and bishop h6 at least. Rook goes somewhere. f8, queen. Queen has several interesting square. I like the queen d4. I think it's a very sympathetic square. And I immediately see a very interesting motif. Queen takes h3, because the idea is that then check. But the point is that I can take, and I can go to h1, and suddenly I can come here. So it's even this nice trick also just favor for white, and finally we win his knight with this motif yet. So, okay, bishop d8 and rook e5. This was losing. Okay, so knight takes e5 is also looks completely hopeless. How about d takes e5? This is still more human, more normal continuation. Queen h5, short castle, rook d1, bishop d7, bishop e3, and rook c8. How about if he tries to go out of the pin with queen e8? Then knight d5, so we jump into the center. Rook c8, because we were threatening with knight c7 already. So with a normal developing move he wanted to prevent that. Then we come with rook a c1, because immediate winning we don't have yet. And king h8. king h2. Yeah, it's very smart moves. King, bishop d8. Yeah, actually hard to play for him. If queen d8 instead, then we can also play useful b3, protect the bishop as much as possible, and if he comes with bishop d6 for example, then knight b6, another discovered threat. A takes b6, rook takes d6, queen e7, rook c d1. And knight d4. Knight d4 is a logical move. Now we have pressure on the d file. The bishop doesn't have any good square, yes, because if bishop e6 I can take it, take back, and maybe rook d7, kind of penetration. And if knight d4, now he has a now he attacked the rook also with this move, and bishop takes d4, e takes d4. Why he didn't take our rook? It's a possibility, but after bishop e5 also we have a strong threat. For example, if the queen goes to maybe e7, but I have bishop d6 and win back a lot of material. If the queen would go to c6, also doesn't really help, because then the rook can go to d6, queen c7, and also kind of play on that side. For example, rook h6. Yeah, it's a very, very good move, threatening with the checkmate, and also the queen is hanging too. And even if queen e5 also he can't take the rook because it's pinned. If f6 even, then I have checkmate. Phew, brilliant, very nice. So e takes d4, that's why, and rook 6 takes the d4 back, and white is better because materially equal, but we are much more active, and also the double b pawns are not the strongest part of the black's position. Okay, alright, this was the queen d8 b3 stuff. How about bishop d8? If you just come with the bishop, then we come with bishop c5. So always try to find the activity. This is the most important. f6. Black also plays very creatively, so it's also very good play by him, because if he would escape with the rook to g8, then what would be play? Actually, it's yeah, just hard to play for him. Maybe I can simply play just b4. So nothing special, and we just push him. Maybe we can activate the rook, maybe come here, or simply double on the d file. So his situation is simply hard and difficult. So f6. F6 it's a good move, because now our queen is also hanging, so we can't take the rook. Queen takes e8, rook takes e8 back, and knight takes f6. This was the point of the tactical move. Bishop takes f6, and rook takes d7. Minimum slightly better endgame, because we have a great activity here. And bishop pair. And the structure is also better. This is somewhere, if we don't reach a winning position because the opponent didn't play a big mistake, this is our dreams. To reach this kind of position with bishop pair, win back the material, no any risk, and just play for win. This is the dream from all position. Okay, great. So let's go back. This was the queen e8. How about the rook c8? Bishop b3, simply go out of the c file, it's a nice prophylactic move. Bishop f6, bishop c5, and g6. Yes, because the rook couldn't move, because we could take on f7, maybe even with the queen is more stronger. So g6, queen h6, bishop g7, queen e3, go back, and knight d4. He should try to find something counterplay. If rook e8 instead, then probably we also have something pressure, like queen f3. Yes, the big advantage of the bishop pair is that we have so many threats. So look this diagonal. He has problems on f7 because we have some attack here. So what can he do against it? Can't protect properly. Yes, the bishop can't move because it's pinned. With the queen he can't protect because it's here. The queen can't go to f6 because I take, and on d7 he is also hanging. The rook can't go to e7 or f8 because I take it. So it's impossible to protect with a normal way the f7. So white is much better here. So that's why still he tried with this knight d4 activity, and he thought, okay, sacrifice the exchange, but rook e8 is also not good, and let's try to find kind of counterplay. But okay, bishop takes f8, queen takes f8, and queen e4. A little bit we go forward, and also minimum slightly better position. But what is the idea of that? I couldn't move unfortunately with the bishop because knight c2 he had. So unfortunately we have to play with this first, and only then we can move with the bishop. But it's no problem because, for example, knight takes b3, a takes b3. If bishop c6, then knight d5 I can jump, or the queen can also go somewhere. Okay, he has bishop pair, but and the pawn, but minimum slightly better for white because we have other activities also. Other activities we have too. Okay, so let's go back and let's see the knight f6 instead of the knight ge5. So from here we reach this active position. So knight f6. Rook e1, continue the development. We couldn't punish him in the f7 square because if knight g5 he can just castle, that's nothing. And also bishop takes f7 is not working because this bishop diagonal is open, so I can't jump to e6 after that with the knight. So rook e1 is good, castle, bishop f4, bishop f5, knight d4, bishop d7. Yes, because if knight takes d4, queen d4, bishop d7, then rook a d1, bishop c6, b4. Slowly we go forward, but in every move I reach something. I also don't hurry with bishop d6 because later on I can also win back. First push him as much as possible. I think it's a really nice play. So let's see how old it's. So knight takes this, bishop goes back. Okay, why the bishop went back? Why doesn't he come with rook c8? Also rook a d1 we can come, and he will have the same problem. Maybe rook c6, try to protect it, but usually if the rook protects the pawn, very easily we will make problems for him because attack that. The pieces are, for example, the rooks are really attackable on the center, or not only in the center. If, for example, on c6 now, it's 2 out. The rook should be on the back rank. So bishop d7, rook a d1, b4 and a4, and white has a great initiative here. Okay, so how about bishop d7 if he goes back here immediately? Knight db5, knight e5, and bishop b3. Yes, these are the good counterplays with black also, because if we would take the pawn but lose the bishop pair and an initiative also a little bit, that is already okay for black. That is his plan, his strategy. So bishop b3, bishop c6, knight d4, bishop d7, and after queen d2 we have a very nice compensation again. Rook a d1 will come, and I can say that any time I can win back the pawn, but I will choose that which is the best for me.